Hi everyone, welcome to today's show. I interview Greg Schneider, the co-founder of Quantium, a data analytics and machine learning firm. He started the business in 2002 and they've grown exponentially in that time to now employ 950 people, and they've got partnerships with major Australian businesses such as Telstra, Commonwealth Bank and Woolworths. In fact, Woolworths purchased another 25% of the business recently, and for about 220 million, and values the company now at 890 million. So it's a major concern, a big business and doing really interesting things in the data analytics space and machine learning. Really good to hear from Greg and get his insights on what they're doing and his journey. I hope you really enjoy the show. Welcome to the show, Greg. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to start with just a little bit of background about your journey and also how Quantium came to be?
Sure. I'm an actuary by training, and kind of left South Africa when I was 20, went to the UK for about 10 years, and then decided that wasn't for me. Found my way to Australia in a traditional actuarial role within a big insurance company. And at some stage, decided really that probably wasn't for me, and thought, what could I use my skills for? And at the time came up with this thing, customer analytics, which was pretty nascent at that stage. Joined a consulting company and started trying to build a customer analytics practice, which actually was harder in the consulting company than it would have been if I'd done it myself. So luckily found kind of a partner who had a very similar view of the world, and started Quantium 20 years ago. And 21st of October would be our 20th anniversary.
Yeah, okay. So, and it really delves into this sort of data analytics side of things, doesn't it?
Yep. It's kind of morphed, customer analytics, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. It's kind of the science itself has improved, and then also the nomenclature has changed over the years.
Yeah, right. So that's really cutting edge stuff these days, right?
Like as a business, we started out of creating something that didn't exist, and I think that that same mentality has meant that we've continued to be at the forefront of the work. And then we're very lucky we were in an industry that had fantastic tailwinds. So it's become more and more important for every organization, both private and government, to improve the way it works, and data plays a big role in that.
Yeah, and it's not a small consulting firm these days, is it? It might have started off 20 years ago in that sort of vein, but these days it's quite a major concern.
So yes, I think there's just south of 1,000 people,
right.
And kind of split, probably still 2/3, 1/3 between data science, actuaries, and so forth. And then also data engineering and software engineering being the other side, because there's no point in doing something that you can't then fully implement. And so our software engineering is both creating bespoke solutions for large organizations, but also product. And so some of our products are standard things that people can license.
And from your own personal point of view, was business always something you were going to do, or was it not that?
No, not for me. For me, it kind of was the idea as customer analytics grew, that just working in that consulting business wasn't the right place for it. It actually was harder with all the constraints that existed, and so just doing it ourselves made more sense. We could then naturally do it. It kind of was, the idea was the key thing, and then the business followed the concept.
Yeah, okay.
Which I think is opposite for many people today, who kind of want to start up or want to do something themselves, and the idea is, what's the idea I need in order to fulfill this dream? Ours was, I think, very much the opposite.
And how has, because you've had Woolies come in Woolworths come in as a partner in the business, and they now own a significant share of the equity. How important has that been to the growth of the business and what you can do?
I mean, I think all of our partnerships, because our relationship with Woolworths is interesting because they're a shareholder,
Yep.
They're a partner, and we also kind of use some of their data to supply insights to their supplier group. So there are multiple things to us, and I think across all of those areas they've been important. But then we've managed to establish other relationships like that, where the most recent one is probably Telstra, which is in the making now, which is a similar kind of thing, which is a deep long-term relationship, to just redefine the way data is used.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of the sorts of, in layman's terms and in practical terms, the sort of stuff that data analytics and the deep dive that you guys can do into those numbers, how that translates into, what the customers see in the shelves or on the shelves and that type of thing, or the store layouts, or that how does that, some examples of how that translates?
Sure. So the best way, in my opinion, the best way to think about AI and all of these things is where you're making or should be making millions of decisions a year, or tens of millions of decisions a year. So in a retail context, it's about what items should be in which stores, every week, what should be on promotion, what shouldn't be on promotion, which customers would be interested to know about those promotions. So those are things that are high frequency. If you get right, you should be making that decision every week or every day in order to make it. And as a person, it's very hard to make a decision like that. Like you just don't have that information. You can't hold all of that information for 1,000 stores, say, in your head. It's not possible. And so what's happened is over the last 50 years, and again in retail, different industries are different, but in retail they designed a process that allows a human to operate it. So they've broken the problem down in a way that a group can look after a particular category, and a group will look after a store and things. And what's just amazing is now that the machine can kind of assimilate all of that information and recommend what the best outcome should be against a particular objective that they have. And it's very hard to beat. And if you take trading is a great example of a similar thing, where the machines and algorithms manage trillions of dollars, and they do that because they can make those many different decisions that you can't make as a human. Now, we think it works best when it's a combination of human and artificial intelligence, the bringing that all together. But yes, no, that is the thrust of it. And so then it plays out in all of those things. So what you see on the store, how do you get fresh items quicker to customers and so forth. And the machines can work on the supply chain and all of the different elements to optimize it a lot better than the person could.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting, because what you're taking is you're really putting data and numbers now because we can. Once upon a time, I always remember sort of, 20 or 30 years ago, I read a book by Jerry Harvey from Harvey Norman, and he was talking about one of the things that fascinated him about retail. And this is obviously before data analytics, was mainstream. He loved the part of retail where you could have a couch set up in a store a certain way, and it wouldn't sell. But then for some reason you could turn it the other way and it would sell like hotcakes. And he just found that sort of side of things quite interesting. I always remember that sort of story. But what you're really doing in real time is making those sort of decisions that someone may have made manually or
probably most likely didn't make. Like most of the time, like you just can't make the decision. So you keep doing what you've done. That's core to it. And then each industry is different. Insurance is a different set of issues, but again, it's working out the price for each individual customer. And a lot of that technology actually came from insurance. The whole thrust, because insurers 20 years ago had to work out, that one customer got a different price than another customer.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't do that manually.
If we go from a business perspective, as the business has grown, what would you say from being involved in growing the business? What's been your biggest strength, and how does it help sort of the business succeed?
I think from my perspective, I've always had a good imagination. And I know in business we don't like to think about imagination. We'll use words like innovation, but my general view is that if you can't imagine it, you can't create it.
Yeah.
And like entrepreneurs typically don't think like this, but they are imagining what the future could be. And so my biggest strength and probably biggest weakness is that imagination. So I was very lucky to have a very strong partner who I started the business with, Adam, and he brought a whole series of other strengths which I didn't have. The business acumen, and management, and also super smart. So but yeah, I would say it's definitely imagination.
And did you
then probably
say your
energy
biggest
to make it
strength
happen.
and your weakness was imagination? Did you
Yeah, because you have to limit it.
Right.
You can't build everything you can imagine.
Yeah,
You have to focus that, and as we've got bigger as a business, I think the concept of focus has just grown and grown.
Yeah, okay. It can't become the unfocused dreamer part of it. You've got to rein that into an extent, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Be pragmatic.
And then you've just got to have like a knack, to know what will work and what won't work, and then you have to have brilliant people around you who can then actually make that happen, because the idea isn't typically worth much. It's actually then taking that and making it real, which
sorry,
is hard. Yeah.
What would be the best decision you've ever made within the business in terms of getting it, as you've gone from starting relatively small and now 1,000 employees? As you've grown, that obviously there's different iterations of the business as you go along through there, right?
Well, I think the original best decision I personally made was probably choosing my partner. We've been a partner for 20 years, and that's worked brilliantly. I think since then, I think the biggest decision was to not be a consulting company. So, when we first started, we had this concept of recurring revenue. We had come from a consulting world, and so we wanted to have recurring revenue. We thought it would be good. It was a good commercial decision, and then recurring revenue creates assets. We never knew what we would do with the asset, but it was that strong belief that we needed to have recurring revenue, and that then morphed into product. And I remember sitting next to one of the first engineer we had, and kind of at night talking about something, and the next day it was there, and building up the product and that's been a 15-20 year journey of actually how to engineer things, how to build things, what the right product set. But it actually came from that very simple view. We wanted this thing called recurring revenue. Yeah,
right. No, it makes a lot of sense. What phase did you decide that you had bringing an equity partner was an important part of the business next phase?
Yeah, well, we actually started. We had an equity partner when we started, and the world, I think, worked differently then, because we myself and my partner, we had decided that we were going to start the business, and there was someone I knew in the UK who ran an actuarial consultancy and was looking to think about what their kind of global strategy was. And 6 weeks later, we had our capital. We had our 4-page heads of agreement, which actually only turned into a shareholders agreement about 5 or 6 years later.
Yeah, right.
So it was quite a different environment. It was all done on trust, and so that's kind of how that all was started.
Yeah. And in terms of biggest mistakes, what's the biggest mistake or the biggest challenge that you've made or seen or faced along the way?
Oh, there's probably too many to mention.
Is there any that sort of really stand out as this was a make or break, or this was something that we
like from a business perspective, probably not. We were really fortunate. I think we were profitable in our second month. First month, second month, and then have been profitable ever since. And so, some things have worked better than others, and so forth. But there's never been like a crunch time where how are you going to pay the bills tomorrow. We've just been really fortunate. We were in the right industry and so forth. But there are many times when we undercharge for something, and I suppose that's the enthusiasm of kind of building a business, and so the value creation wasn't fair between us and our clients who we were working with, I remember one meeting, actually. It's not a big deal, but it's just a great example. Is we were really early in our software development kind of phase. It was our first major multi-country software deployment. And I remember sitting with this gentleman, and he was saying, "So if we've got any bugs, how long will you fix the bugs for?" I thought to myself, well, the right thing to do would be to fix it forever, like while ever you're licensing the software.
Right.
And I remember he said, "Are you sure of that answer?" Right? And the right thing to do would be to stop and find out, like, what is the normal practice.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you kind of ego or whatever it is gets there, and he said, "No, we'll stick by that," and
Right.
for years, little things after that, we were fixing and fixing and fixing, and they never then went through an acceptance cycle. And it was just so different to how typical software is built, which is, if you build something bespoke for someone, you give them a period of time where they would uncover all the issues, and anything they don't uncover, then that's not covered.
Yeah.
And so there's just lots of little learnings, and
that is part of the learning curve, right? Is just, especially with software. I mean, that's
yeah. But you live and learn. We didn't know the first thing about it when we started, but we kind of learned along the way.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, like having that recurring business model still, I presume you still have that sort of that does any sort of business model, if you can generate that recurring revenue, is really important to the strength.
Yeah, that's right. Like it's classic. The asset value of that is obviously high, and it does cushion lots of things. I mean, I think over the years we've had to ask ourselves: are we a consulting business? Are we a technology business? And the answer is, very happily, we both, and we are both, and we've kind of figured out that the two work so well together.
Yeah, okay.
Pure product business is very hard to get to the heart of problems early, and one of our gifts really is that we work so closely with our clients that we actually get to see these problems maybe before others, which then allow us to build solutions which harden and mature into products. So the two kind of work together in a very symbiotic way.
Because you've got to diagnose those issues, right, first, to know what to. Then when you've got solutions for them, that's great. But if you're just trying to sell a solution as such,
that's right.
That's
harder. That's exactly right. And then the products keep you very much engaged with customers, which then allow you to work with them on the next hurdle. And that's we feel that people have copied us over the years, and that's life. And we just have to back ourselves that we'll be continually thinking about what's next.
Yeah. And in terms of, as you've grown along, you've probably had mentors and different people. What's the best advice you've had from somebody?
I think it's that the blinkers that you put on the way you see yourself and your business is self-imposed. So if, as in that kind of early example, if we had seen ourselves only as a consulting business, well, that's all we would have been.
Yeah.
And so, like, recognizing that, what you are, what you do, the markets you're in are all, things that are definitions that you've created, that frees you to then allow you to think about what you should be, given what you can do.
Yeah. And if someone was starting a business, what advice would you give?
Well, I think I would very much ask why you're starting the business. I think if you've got a brilliant idea that you're passionate about, and you deeply know it, and the way to create it is starting your business, I think that's great. I think the people who want all the benefits of a startup and are looking for the idea, to me, that's probably just the wrong way around. Like I remember having a conversation with a young person where we were talking about their ambition,
Yep.
and their ambition was to earn. I think this particular gentleman wanted to earn $300,000 a year. That was his goal,
Yep.
and we had to like unpack that. That's not a goal. That's an outcome of a goal.
Yeah.
And so, I'd really encourage people to, think, why should it be them? Like, why will they be successful when others won't? What are they bringing? And that's quite a wide question.
Yeah.
To the equation. But what are they bringing? And then the rest is about being sensible and have you heard of like the passion dispassion paradox?
No.
It's like in my view, in order to create anything, you need massive passion.
Yeah.
Right. You need to believe in it. You need to really understand it, and you need to bring so much energy to it, to create it, because you're fighting momentum. Creating something new requires you to break that. But then you need an equal amount of dispassion at the right time to look at what you're doing and saying, is that like what you should be doing? Where do you need to change it? And this isn't a good idea. We should stop.
Yeah.
And, I think having that equal amount of passion and dispassion, I think is pretty crucial.
Yeah, you've got to overlay a level of objectiveness over what you're doing, because it's great to be passionate, but it's also sometimes good to change your mind if something's changed.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly
Actually,
right.
and it reminds me of when you're talking about why people should start a business and how they approach it. It reminds me a little bit of that Jim Collins sort of hedgehog and the fox sort of story, which is around that, the hedgehog who just burrows in, gets in and is going to do that one thing really well for the next 20, 30 years. It's a lifetime piece of work.
Yep.
Versus the fox who's distracted or wants to. And it just reminds me of the types of entrepreneurs you're talking about who, if they're passionate about it, want to just make it their lives work. That's a good reason to do it. If you just want to be an entrepreneur because of the benefits and because it sounds great, you're going to be jumping from the next thing constantly, as the fox does in that story. But I always found that to be quite a fascinating sort of analogy to the types of people who run businesses.
Yeah, I think so. And I've only got experience in kind of the business and the world that I've grown up in, so I can't assume that that's too widely true. But it feels like you need to understand yourself, whether you'll do better in a big organization or you'll do better in your own organization.
Yeah.
And understand that at a deep way, and you can get great meaning in both situations. You can have a fulfilling life in both situations.
Yeah.
If that's right for you.
And in terms of business people that have inspired you along the way, is there anyone that stands out that you look at and really admire the way they go about it?
I don't know if I'd call it inspired, but yeah, I suppose it is inspired. I've read up and so forth on Steve Jobs and his life, and the creation and the redefining something. So someone today will think that mobile phones and mobile internet are the same, and just go look at go look at the video when he launches the first iPhone.
Yeah.
Forget the showmanship and that, which is pretty amazing as well. But just look at what that looks like, and look at your iPhone today, and you'll be amazed at how similar it is. Like, it is a remarkable thing that how right it appears that that interface and that way of thinking is. Now, there's been massive improvements and massive things, but it surprised me how similar it is to the kind of iPhone you walk around today with.
Yeah. Steve Jobs is one of those guys that's just amazing. He's probably not the most pleasant guy. If you read, and I was going to ask about favorite books, I imagine the Walter Isaacson biography is probably on top of the list there as well, because that's a great read.
Yeah, like I'm not a business book reader, actually. I'm not motivated by business books personally. I probably like people's stories more than personally business books, but I think, growing up, I remember I read a book by an author called Isaac Asimov, who was a pretty famous author at the time, still is actually, and it talked about the early astronomers and so forth. And I felt like I was more interested in the astronomer's life than in what they actually created.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
more interesting to me. So I'm still fascinated by that. You know, that. But yeah, and then I suppose the other book, which is also not a business book, but just felt so true to me, was *Sapiens*,
Yeah, right. Yep.
which is just, it's so talked to the views that I've held, that all the constructs are made by us.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, then you kind of can think about your ability to influence that and change it.
And that takes you through the whole history of people and those sort of structures, right?
Yeah, money, like
Yeah.
the reason why money makes sense is because you have a belief and I have a belief, and it's a shared belief, but it's just a belief. And when I read that, it just felt so true. And there's just so many truisms in that book.
It's amazing sometimes, things that just, when you sit back and think, oh, this is a construct, it really does make you stop a bit. And
and you take that to kind of the early iPhone. It's putting all the different technologies, but just doing it in a totally different way. The Palm Pilot existed at the time, which had a little thing and so forth. So that's it's, and all these kind of great, I think, leap forwards have always been around people not being bound by the rules at the time.
Yeah, well, that's why I like that Steve Jobs biography, because it does delve into, and he's a great biographer, because I think Walter Isaacson's done biographies on Ben Franklin, Einstein. There's a few really several of them that he's done, but he really delves into their life, and it does give you great insights into what makes somebody like that tick.
Well, as much as an external person, in a book can, you feel like but you probably don't. But it doesn't matter. It was still very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of, have you got a favourite quote, just to finish off on a couple of things? Have you got a favourite quote in whether it's business, leadership, or life?
Yeah, not really. I'm not
into that.
I'm not like that. No, it's like I speak to lots of people who've got like 5-year plans and have organised all of these things. I don't personally. I've never worked like that. So no, don't have a.
So you just get on with the job. It's simple as that, right?
Yeah. Kind of what's there to do. And I still love the business. I still, my partner probably enjoys the business of the business.
Yeah.
More than me, and I actually enjoy the business. I actually still enjoy, what we do, and still try to kind of keep my hand in. Although all the people I work with would probably disagree that I even know how to do anything anymore. So there we go.
Well, what is next for you and for the business in the years ahead? What's next?
I think as we've entered industries, because we've been new to industries, we've managed to bring some adjacent thinking into those, and I think we've redefined it. The way promotions are going to work in retail actually comes from insurance price optimization. That probably won't mean much to you, but it actually means that something that was developed in one industry for one application can apply somewhere else. And so we aren't limited by and that's probably growing up as an Australian company. We're not really limited by the function of the industries. If you're in the US, you would have this super defined functional industry specialization. Right. Because we're in Australia and it's a much smaller economy, we've kind of had to be multi-industry, multifunctional.
Okay.
But that's an advantage in some respects, because we've got a big trove of knowledge to draw from to solve particular issues. So I do feel an obligation to make government work better. I feel there is a ton of things that we could bring capability to just make things work smoother.
Just in terms of efficiencies and those sorts of things?
Get resources to the right people at the right time, understand things, both from a policy and execution area. And, we've had a big team working on COVID, and, I know the team's absolutely exhausted because it's just been a long thing. But they've meaningfully saved lives.
Okay.
Had PPE at the right old age centres before they were required, which made a difference. So there is, I think, there are a lot of industries, and our journey has only just begun. Like the impact of data science in industry is kind of, think about the impact of the internet on business, which is has mostly about how people can work with each other remotely and so forth. And the way data can power all of that, but also the way the rest of the business works. I think we're at a very early stage in.
So you've got these solutions that you've started off in Australia, but they're inherently quite scalable across the world in the same sorts of areas, and that's and it's not just in terms of maximising revenues or profits or anything like that. You're talking about efficiencies within supply chains and
that's right. It can be front and kind of back office, and as long as the end, I think in all of these things, if you focus on the product of the product, so if you focus on improving the lot of the end consumer or the end business who are utilizing this ability, and that's what really motivates and guides you, then the business that you're working with that supplies that will do better because they will provide a better product and better end product in some way, shape, or form. And our solutions are just going to make businesses more intelligent and just increase productivity and increase and redefine the consumer proposition. So that's an exciting place to be. And I think organizations are now accepting that. They are recognizing that same need. And so the difference to when we started was like really having to work so hard to get someone to try something new. Whereas now, like, there are so many successes that it's about really focusing where you can have the biggest end impact.
No, that's huge. And it's anything that makes business, government more efficient, more intelligent, and making better long-term decisions and sustainable decisions too, right? That's good for everybody.
And it's pretty cool for our team because when we can, as a group, think of something that maybe someone else hasn't thought of or hasn't come out yet, apply it, and it becomes the norm, and someone new coming along thinks that was the way it was always done. That's quite fulfilling, actually, as you become that person of change.
Well, Greg, on that note, thank you very much for joining us and coming on the show. Really interesting insights, and appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.